The best of TFR wherever you are.
See you there.
So you love talk radio, then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you think that General Patton was woke? I don't think so. What do you think, Mike? Mike, was he woke? I don't think so. I don't think he was too woke. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit. This is a sick culture, and our country is a disaster, and it's going to die before your very eyes. The soccer team was supposed to easily win, but they went woke. The one with purple hair, she didn't play too well. She went woke. Take a look. Everything goes bad. But it's true about woke. Do you think that General Patton was woke? It's crazy. It's crazy. I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit. Our country was so respected. Nobody was going to mess with us. And then this clown, he got in office like the captain of a ship. Let's jump off first before the passengers. I'm getting the hell out of here. I could just see this, the leadership of the Taliban standing there. Somebody walking up, sir, the soldiers have left. It's crazy. I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit. You know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. You got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But you got, no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedom. But I happen to take the vaccine. It's crazy. I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Woke.
Right.
You know what woke means?
What's going
It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything
Should be going
woke
on in a
turns
sec.
to shit.
There we are.
Wherever you are. Make it easy. Radio.
Okay, I think that's it. Yeah. My show used to have an intro. We got pulled down, and it's been a mess. How's it going, everybody? It is Trigenesis with Zeralath here on TFRLive.com. How's it going, everybody? Today, I have a guest with us. A new friend that I've made fast on the internet. We are... we operate together on Weaving Spiders Welcome on the YouTube with Benjamin Balderson and James Maiden, Al Marcus, and a plethora of other friends that come and go with the whims of the world. And this here, oh man, this is my man Paul Timothy Hughes, right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Paul Timothy Hughes. And Paul is on, he's just now kind of making a name for himself, right? So he doesn't have a social media presence, but he has a wealth of knowledge to talk about that he is putting into practical application in the discipline of traditional alchemy, being adapted with innovations in modern technology, and has some very, very high endeavors that I'm starting to believe he might be wily enough to pull off in this manner that I'm intrigued about, because it's doing things in a process that isn't disturbing like the way alchemy of the turn of the century was disturbing. So that's going to be an awesome thing that's going to be a big part of the whole to-do of talking about what we're going to talk about with you, your exploration of alchemy, the things you want to do with alchemy, maybe your sense of purpose in the world. So, my man, introduce the TFR Live audience to you.
Well, my name is Paul Timothy Hughes III. I'm born August 3rd, 1987. I'm originally from upstate New York, the Capital District area. And I'm just someone who's been at this, like you said, I don't really have a social media presence because I spend a vast majority of my time just doing raw research and reading and, putting everything into practice. So now that I know that people want to hear what I know, it's, just a matter of time before I put things up. But essentially, I've been, working in the various hermetic and alchemical fields for, 15, 20 years now, somewhere around there. Pretty big into the truther community, or was for quite some time. I pretty much just keep my head low and I stick my nose to the grindstone and I get work done, as opposed to the folks who just pretend like they're doing things while they're being armchair occultists. I started off with basic chaos magic theory or philosophy, whatever you want to call it. As a kid, I was very skeptical of all this, and my my methodology for trying to essentially debunk magic, hermetics, the occult, whatever you want to call it, was I did just like you would do with debunking anything. You use the scientific method, and you get the best basic learning materials you can, so that you get a foundational knowledge of what you're supposed to be doing, and you follow the directions. And in a very short period of time, I understood that I had thoroughly underestimated metaphysics, and I jumped headfirst into the pool, and I've been here ever since. But about 10 years ago, I started studying transmigration of the soul, or how to leave your body for good and possibly never come back, escape the reincarnation cycle, and possibly even inhabit another body. Right? There's plenty of literature on it. I think it goes all the way back to Pythagoras. It's a process that's sort of outlined in several books, but one of the missing components for many years, and the reason why I pretty much thought that it was something that I would never do, even if I had the ability to, is if you were going to inhabit another body, right, you would obviously need a new vessel. Well, there's only a few options. If you want to leave your body and inhabit something else, you can haunt an object. You can stay on the astral plane forever, which doesn't sound like anything I want to do. You can try to inhabit a comatose body and somehow coax the spirit from the silver cord connection and do it that way. You can try to get yourself into an unborn fetus, which I find incredibly disturbing. Or the final option is you can try to create a Tatva, homunculus, the little man, a surrogate, a golem, if you will, and that should theoretically give you a body without a soul. Whatever they animate with in the literature doesn't really seem too specific, but it seems like something that's been done before. I think that if there's any veracity to the Saint Germain claims, he appeared old at one time, and then in front of an entire royal court, basically proved who he was to people who should have known him, but he was obviously in a younger man's body with a totally different facial structure. So you could say that he used the Philosopher's Stone in whatever form that takes, as it's obviously not just monoatomic gold and magnesium chloride, or maybe it's milk of magnesia. So it's obvious that he either inhabited someone else's body or he grew another body, right?
Mhm.
I mean, there's not really a whole lot of options, and there's a bunch of lore through the alchemical texts that goes, all the way back to the Greeks and probably long before that. Now, people can say that this is all fantasy, and I'd like them to consider this. I'm from upstate New York, and it gets pretty cold in the winter. I can't tell you how many times throughout my life I have gone out and purchased some meat at the market or the butcher, brought it home, left it in the fridge too long, or maybe just forgot about it, threw it away in the garbage can, all sealed up. Now, this is in the dead of winter, this happens, and I'm sure many, many, many other people have experienced it. So you leave the meat in the trash. Sometimes you forget it's in there, and there's flies or there's maggots. Now, if the meat was cut at the butcher, then there should be absolutely no possibility of there being larvae in the meat. That's nonsensical, crazy talk.
Right, and we're talking about,
Yeah.
you said the winter, right? So there are no flies.
Yeah.
In the winter, they're not going to be going to breed where the garbage is in the winter, right? We just want to make sure, because, like, I know some skeptical people that sometimes I encourage to listen, because I try to get a normie or two.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. But I know for sure this is going to resonate with people, because I've seen it myself so many times that I've completely lost track. And every time it happens, uh, in years past, I've thought, that is so bizarre. I just don't understand it. I went through a lot of literature on golem creation and different talismans, things like that. I even went through a bit of homunculus literature back then, like I said, probably 8-10 years ago. But everything that I looked at seemed to be preposterous, because of my knowledge base and my understanding of metaphysics at the time. Um, there are some things that you cannot be told, you cannot be shown. You have to experience things and put them together for yourself. I'm a very skeptical person, and this is not something that I really normally would have been willing to look at. Now, a few months ago, I finally put aside some time to check out the Homunculus Unveiled, Minds Unveiled, and I had seen it, pop up in my feed 2-3 times before, passed by it. Damn, 10 hours. That's a haul. I certainly hope there's a serious payoff. Well, I have now, between watches, and it's a lot of listens because I listen to it at work a lot. I think I've listened to and watched the video a full 75 times or somewhere around there at this point, because I always feel like I'm missing something. You know what I mean? I have a tremendous amount of corresponding literature. Minds has a small Google file that you can go and download some books that'll help you understand what they're talking about. And what they're talking about is abiogenesis, the creation of life from unlife, which modern academia will tell you is something that was debunked well over 100 years ago, while they're also telling you that it's the way that life was created in their false heliocentric cosmology. So you're not supposed to believe it when other people tell you that it happens. But when academia tells you it's all right. I have lost count of how many modern academic articles I have saved from institutions from Harvard, Yale, MIT. The list goes on and on and on. Tremendously big name schools are very much still practicing and studying these arts in modern form. You know, anybody who thinks that the Philosopher's Stone is fake or just an analogy, it's literally patented in almost every other country in the modern world except for the United States, because the patent office refused it. But you can look it up. It's there's an acronym for it. I believe it's called ORMES. And that's basically they're creating monoatomic gold through isolating an orbital electron. And the guy who discovered it, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's not a chemist to my knowledge. As far as I know, he was a gold miner, a homesteader, and maybe an amateur chemist at home.
I just want to point out, I find it interesting, ORMES, like Ormus, which I don't know what Ormus is, but it sounds like something I've heard before that means something.
Ormus. I think you're probably unpacking a lot of boxes. I believe it says Ormus-D on certain cardboard boxes.
No, like, dude, I'm also an occultist. So I that could be a word I've heard someone say, oh, this means this in Sanskrit or something, right? So it's okay. I'm just underscoring it, right? Like etymology is crazy. So
yeah, of course. It was just exactly where my head went at the time. So essentially, if you're going to go the minds route, you're going to take a 10-hour journey. You're not going to spend a lot of time on the nuts and bolts of the process. And to be brutally honest with everybody and to save everybody a lot of time and heartache, there isn't a tremendous amount of functional material that you can find on this subject. However, there is a plethora of art, historical documents, modern science, and corresponding a culture that I think it all is pointing to the same thing. I mean, I think this is really, people say the Philosopher's Stone is the magnum opus of alchemy. I think the generic arts are. I don't know about you, but I would rather have the ability to build a whole new human being than turn copper into gold. I can't eat or use or do anything with that. You know what I mean?
well, I am one who has on 2 occasions had the nectar of Athanasia, which is a liquid gold, not monoatomic gold, but a liquidized gold through an alchemical process. And that stuff does amazing things for your nervous system and
gold?
your electroplasticity of the brain.
Is that a colloidal gold?
No, it's the nectar of Athanasia. It's its own thing.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, yeah. This is associated with Black Earth Productions, And it's the
Nice.
only place you can get it is through Black Earth Productions.
Good to know. So basically, because I try not to get redundant with work that's already been done. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to distillate all of the functional chunks of what Minds is giving everyone into something that you could actually experiment with in your own time. That might sound really disturbing to some people, but it doesn't have to be quite as gruesome as it is in the literature. We have all kinds of modern technology that can really be assistive in making this all not such a messy, vile, disgusting process. Which, at the same time, I would like to say that before you can really modernize or try to fix the process as it is, you really have to test the process as it's listed, you know, to see if there even are any holes. Because here's the problem, and here's something that Minds doesn't really lay out for everyone. We have a lot of secondhand accounts. We have a lot of quasi-historical accounts of all of this. And we have a lot of people who say they debunked it. And they say they used the scientific method to debunk it, which maybe they did. But were they considering things like astral sight? Were they considering things like frequency? Were they considering things like hidden hints in the artwork from the Rosicrucians? There's so many holes that you don't even know if they were waiting for the right astrological conjunctions, convergences, whatever you want to call them. You need the proper astrological powers for all of this. It's very obvious, and it's pretty clear in what I've found. And to me, it sounds a lot like they were just trying to debunk the hard science, but clearly it's not just hard science. It's hard science plus metaphysics, plus mathematics, and a tremendous amount of other disciplines. I think it's very obvious when you get really deep into this stuff that they were using electricity and magnetism on a level that we don't currently believe that they were using. But I can assure you,
Yeah. I mean, like, we all understand Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, right? And she was the first science fiction author, right? So,
sure,
women want to complain about the women. You get science fiction. You got the first science fiction story published. Mary Shelley, right? Who was hanging out with like the horror club or something like that. Like her husband's like club, and they liked her. I can't remember the whole story.
Promethean Ambitions or whatever it is. I think Minds probably got quite a bit of their material from there because it seems pretty linear in how it's set up. They mentioned Mary Shelley and where all that came from, Andrew Cross, and it's see we understand that they obviously had electricity back then because there's alchemical manuscripts that call for magnets, but you find some of the same manuscripts asking for lodestone or natural magnet. Now, to me, if I was writing a manuscript and it was a tech manuscript, something that I wanted handed down for eons, I would make sure all of my nomenclature was unified, organized. It was all the same throughout, right? Because you don't want anyone getting confused. So to me, the magnet or magnetite, whatever they're referring to, that they're not directly referring to natural magnet or lodestone. That seems a pretty solid indicator that they were able to electrically create magnetic fields.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah, and magnetism, magnetism. We have this idea that we didn't have a good harness of magnetism for a while, and I think that we did, and then we lost that with the amount of resource and work that was in the area, right? So you probably had some magnetism that was in play in places where you find megalithic structures, and so it was the time and place of those megalithic structures, but they maybe only had enough resources just to take care of the movements for them, right? And we're talking about something that was low tech, but on a grand scale, with something like
I'm really
magnets
glad,
giving you the extra oomph.
I'm really glad you brought this up, because here's another factor that I've been curious about myself.
And we got about a minute and a half or so before a hard break hits. It's every 30 minutes. Okay. So, and that's a 3-minute break. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess in a minute we'll talk about lead scallon, coral castle, and ley lines.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'd like to bring up.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's it's a lot of math that I think that I can now explain in a sane and logical way. So
And for the math portion of the lecture, I will be sitting in the corner in a dunce cap, and I'm just going to let you run the class. I'm one of those guys in the math bad camp. I wish I wasn't. So when you're telling it, I may not have any good questions on the math per se, except on the basic level of like, oh, the numerology, right? But
well, this corresponds to the pyramids, and Edward Leeds Scallon's flywheel that's present at Coral Castle, and some other things like the Grand Masonic Lodge in Philadelphia. It's all relative. It's all related.
Okay, yeah. Good and basic stuff that you can see from various esoteric sources that are kind of face value. I always work pretty darn well with those. So, because I may actually have a pre-familiar reference point. The break is going to get started here in just a couple of seconds. So I'm going to talk us through until the music cues up and the system mutes out. We're here with my friend Paul Timothy Hughes. He's an alchemist, and we're getting into... Okay, now we're muted.
All right. Yeah, so...
It's still recording on the Audacity, though.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, brother. I was just going to say that I felt bad last night because, again, I tried to jump into things a little bit too fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like this is crazy important to the work.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people aren't understanding why I'm here working on the Coral Castle thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of what I have to go off of is old artwork, woodcuts, paintings, things like that. Texts from the manuscripts are fine, but the old alchemists
do not settle for the average. Average is the grave in which excellence is buried.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Hold on.
Average people strive to fit in, while excellent people strive to stand out. You can never change what you.
All right, I will. I'll unmute that in a second. This is going to be bonus material for the YouTube channel. All right, keep going.
Yeah, not a problem. So a lot of the art that you have to dissect with these alchemical manuscripts and trying to hunt down some of the old alchemical mysteries, there is so much corresponding imagery and ideology between Coral Castle, which obviously corresponds to the Grand Masonic Lodge in Philadelphia. There's a whole long documentary. Well, it's segmented into 6 different parts, but altogether, I think it's like 5.5 hours, and it breaks down a lot of the math and the engineering, the occult engineering behind Leeds Scallan's modern marvel, the 8th marvel of the world, Coral Castle. We could get into, limestone and how limestone is also what the pyramids are made of, and the fact that
That
Leeds
limestone
Scallan,
is what?
limestone is what the Pyramid of Giza is made out of. Sir,
All
I'm
right,
here.
sorry about that. I had to mute the studio so I could talk to Paul off air, and then it wouldn't let me unmute it. So I tried to pull it out and pull it in. It didn't work, so I had to restart the whole darn thing, just like my sex life. Okay, go. So Paul, we were in the midst of talking about
So
this was something about the mathematics in relationship to the process of
I
the
should
Philosopher's
explain
Stone
this.
and Homunculus, right?
Yeah. So what I'm about to talk about will probably sound entirely unrelated to what anybody who is familiar with what Minds has put out knows of the subject. But I can assure you that the basics are really the bread and butter of any alchemist, hermeticist, any practitioner. The basics are all you really need to be super concerned with. And these are concepts that are ubiquitous across all portions of the practice. And you have commonalities like we have the macrocosm, the cosmos, and we have the microcosm, our bodies, which is the small cosmos. This is just like that. So if everybody can just bear with me, Edward Leeds Scallan built what I consider the 8th marvel of the world, Coral Castle, which is, I think it's like something like 221,000, or maybe it's 22,000 tons of limestone. He was a diminutive, skinny, little old man who built it all by himself. Not only did he construct the entire castle, he also moved it to a better spot, a more advantageous area, also by himself. And he left some hints, and people have been trying to decode what he's been trying to tell people since the castle's been open to the public, and it's still open to the public. It's about 4 hours south of where I live right now. So Leeds Scallan wrote a book on magnetic current, and the Coral Castle has several features that are almost one-for-one copies of the Grand Lodge, the Grand Masonic Lodge in Philadelphia. Something that's important to note is the hexagram pattern, which corresponds to Saturn, creation and destruction, time and space. So at the center of Coral Castle, there's a device. There is a flywheel with a handle. There's nearby, there's a little copper pipe. A lot of sacred geometry going on. There's monuments to the sun and moon, crescent moon, things like that outside. But for right now, we're really just concerned with the flywheel. And I don't want to get crazy in depth, but there's a couple of videos you can find under ancient knowledge, and it's like parts 1 through 6. And essentially what you're going to find out is the golden ratio plays into this, phi. The important things to understand are out front, he has an engraving on the wall that says 7129, and then under that there's 6105195. So the top 7129 are prime numbers, and then when you go to the bottom, they're prime quadruplets and right angles. Prime quadruplets are fairly rare, and they hide a lot of secrets that are unlocked in sacred geometry. Things like the pyramid. They will tell you that you can use these numbers to calculate the diameter of the sun, or the surface area of the sun, or the moon. Now, I know some people will disagree with me, but I think most people who are listening to you will understand that the sun is not a burning ball of gas in an infinite vacuum, 93 impossible million miles away to measure. And parallax lensings, you can tell how far away, or roughly how far away, the sun and stars are, because they're all roughly the same distance through parallax focus. That was Samuel Rowbotham's whole point back in the day, the zetetic astronomy guy. So that aside, the flywheel has 24 magnets, and they're U-shaped magnets that circle the center, essentially where the handle is, and the handle is set to, hold on, I don't know if I have it in here. Doesn't matter. We can skip that. So each side has 7 magnets. 168 use one position, 328 minus 168 is 168. The Norman Hall not work. So basically 6 to 144, you have 6 quadruplets. 144 is in prime. You've got the 6th and 7th, which are 144 and 288. Basically, what these are doing is these are creating a toroid field around the mechanism that is allowing it to tap into the resonance, the resonance of limestone specifically, because all of the mathematics correspond. That's basically what I was trying to get at. I just didn't want to lose people, and I knew I was going to. So they have a triagonal crystal lattice system, hexagonal lattice inside limestone. And if you go through all of this, there's a lot of Saturn imagery that leads Scallon left around, a lot of as above, so below. We all know that that's Saturn, that's creation and destruction. So Lead Scallon's machine can basically shape, levitate, and cut limestone. And it can also essentially drag it straight out of the ground like a tractor beam, like Star Trek or whatever you want to call it. And supposedly, nobody knows how to get the machine to work. But I think that it's fairly obvious that it's activated through cymatics, and there's a frequency, and it's I think it should be very apparent to everyone how this is going to work when they walk in, because one of the first things you see outside on the door is a sign that says ring bell, and that gets into the whole Masonic hall. But in the center of the flywheel is a bell, and I think that that's the heart of the machine. That's how you power it. If you activate it with the correct frequency, it's going to allow you to essentially steer a beam of energy, a beam of magnetism, of sound, using that handle. But I believe that it has way, way more capabilities than that. I think that if you can find the frequency or range of frequencies that certain position of the handle corresponds to, you can then reverse engineer that with known cymatic patterns and known celestial qualities and frequencies, and you can harness different celestial vibrations, I guess you could call it, for different purposes. Now, the reason all of this corresponds is because there are many, many engravings and art pieces that have images of the sun that have 24 specific spokes. A lot of them seem to have something at the tips of the spokes that I now understand are representative of magnets. And all of this is related because sound and vibration is everything. Light is 3D sound. Everything is vibrating, and there is no solid objects. So if you're going to manifest something into the realm, if you're going to try to, I don't know if we're going to say break physics, matter cannot be created or destroyed. And, at the same time, energy cannot be created or destroyed. But it seems like there are plenty of anecdotal references that you can look at that show no matter which side of the fence you're on, you're standing in the same yard. There is no other option besides spontaneous generation and abiogenesis. This is just how it worked, and the rest of it's semantics. So I am trying to put together the missing pieces because there's obviously a lot that we're missing in the scientific regard for the public. Now, academia has already done this. This is something that's already been done, is being done currently. It's not like I'm doing something that has never been done. However, what I'm trying to show people is this is something that we were able to do since time immemorial. And I think that it's very obvious that they were doing this after catastrophes, cataclysms, whatever you want to call it. And if you could prove that, something akin to cloning, genetic manipulation, to be able to create life from what should be impossible non-heterogeny, then you would make history, would you not? So we have a lot of problems, but I think everything's solvable. I think that once you can figure out the cymatics for the celestial bodies involved, so we have Sagittarius, we have Leo, we have Venus, and we have Saturn. Got all four, right?
Yeah.
We understand that Saturn has a hexagonal, a hexagram in the center of it. I'm not talking about the NASA photography. I'm talking about real astrophotography. I have a perfect example on the phone right now,
Yes.
and it's a real picture from a friend of mine, Joe Hanby, and it's very clear. There's a cymatic hexagram in the center of the circle, and it doesn't
It's
have
his great big yarmulke. It's his big yarmulke in the sky.
yeah. So it spirals into itself, which I thought was interesting in and of itself. But that that pattern is important because in the generic arts, you're talking about putrefaction. The Negredo stage is creating the change that's necessary for new life, and obviously, in the occult sense, we say, well, we don't say, we know that Saturn rules over the life and death process. So, working with the most obvious, the easiest things that I can work with to solve, I'm essentially trying to figure out the frequencies that you would need to um, understand through the stars, the little pulsing sounds in the sky. You know, we can't hear them, but I'm assuming that each one has its own cymatic pattern that you can probably see if you watch it for long enough.
Right.
So if you can find the corresponding cymatics, all of the cymatics are mathematical equations, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, in short, you're trying to find the harmonic resonance for life in the in the alignments.
Yeah, that's literally without saying it because it sounded ridiculous even to me. Yeah, that's precisely what we're talking about. We're talking about finding the cymatics in the sky that are correspondent with, astrology.
Right. Well, Rudolf Steiner talks about the harmony of the spheres and such things. So yeah, it's all in accord. Even
Yeah,
using the
I
word
just
accord.
understand that most people who are hearing this think that it's probably think that it's the craziest fucking thing they've ever heard. But
Well, they have to. Well, they have to follow that this is part of from an old tradition. That there's an entire rational, logical process going on, and if they don't want to accept that we have discovered serious value in it, they can at least admire that we are re-examining this thing that they think doesn't work, right? Because whether they agree with us or not about the worth of this kind of thing, it is fascinating to kind of reconstruct where that mind was coming from, right? And I think that that's something that the uninitiated can kind of grasp in what this kind of conversation evokes.
yeah, so trying to find something here on Google. 1 second here. Ben and I were discussing the worms, bees, the precursors to generating the homunculus, right? Paracelsus talks about how the four elements combined and they make lesser life forms in
Right. Yeah, I was hearing. I was there when you guys were talking about that. I had some thoughts on the matter, but it wasn't good time for me to speak up because I was segueing my thoughts from things I remembered from the movie Evolution. That was produced by Dan Aykroyd and starred David Duchovny and a few other characters. And because
so
if you never saw that one has an asteroid comes to
yeah,
Earth panspermia style, and then a fungal growth that was on the rock starts creating evolution, and it starts with these little worms that I think, are like methane kind of breathing worms, because there's this permeation of methane or something on the ground, right? And then it goes through accelerated evolution. But that, when you have accelerated evolution like that, that could have just been spontaneous generation with extra steps.
Okay, so uh, I I've got something good here.
All right.
So you remember Ben and I were discussing how you might be able to find other corresponding insects or precursors that exist wherever we live, right? We had the discussion. Ben mentioned what, ants? Ben had said that he thought maybe ants could be used as a precursor.
Okay.
Now, me personally, I had been studying the hexagon, and I was studying bees because bees have a obvious correspondence. If you look at honeycombs
Yep.
are a hexagon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking that there must be some kind of correlation between some kind of hexagon pattern and whatever the precursor is, right? That was my initial assumption. However, I went through a little bit of brushing up on parthenogenesis. Do you know what parthenogenesis is? Parthenogenesis is?
Parthenogenesis.
Yes. I'll
I,
give,
I
I'll
it,
give you the definition.
okay.
It is a natural form of asexual reproduction in which growth and development of embryos occur in a gamete, which is an egg or sperm, without combining with another gamete, example, egg and sperm fusing. In animals, parthenogenesis means the development of an embryo from an unfertilized egg cell. In plants, parthenogenesis is a component process of apomixis. In algae, parthenogenesis can mean the development of an embryo from either an individual sperm or an individual egg. So, without going too far into detail with this, I was scrolling down. I'm looking for examples of things that go through parthenogenesis to procreate, right? So we have tardigrades, water fleas. Oh, scorpions. Where do we know scorpions from? Liber Vitae, Book of the Cow, right? And also there's mention in Picatrix of being able to generate green scorpions. What else do we have? Aphids. Oh, where do we know aphids from? Andrew Cross, the Lightning Man, electrocrystallization, creating aphids from water that life should not have been habitable in. Where else do we have?
Aphids. We're talking about those tiny, tiny red dot size bugs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's like ladybugs. Like, I know that ladybugs eat those. That's all I know about aphids.
Yeah. I'll bring something up in a second.
Yeah, there's constantly aphids around the concrete spots in my property.
So then we go to mites, and then we have some bees. Okay, well, that's strange. And then immediately following, we have and some parasitic wasps. Now, I talked a little bit about begonia the other night, and we know that bulls create honeybees in that process, and a horse or a war horse will create wasps. So we already have scorpions, aphids, bees, wasps, and so far that's pretty much all we need to know there. So I feel bad because I had originally told Ben I didn't think that there was a there with the ants. I essentially thought that it was a nonsensical idea, but I think that right here we have parthenogenesis, which is a very well documented form of asexual reproduction uh, with fauna that has very clearly defined male and female. So this is not unheard of, unprecedented. these are all things that are very grounded in reality. So
Right.
these are
And
things that,
we have to remember that this does give credence to the occult allusions in the Bible. We're talking about virgin birth stuff over here.
sure, that's precisely what we're talking about, and we can get into that a little bit.
Yep.
Um,
And we got about a minute and a half before the break.
yeah, I basically I think that was pretty much all I really wanted to say about that. Um, One thing that we should probably throw in is that mushroom spores are essentially asexual reproduction as well, right? And
Yeah, mushroom spores. Those are interesting. And hasn't genetics marked mushrooms as being something in between plant and animal?
sure, and where do everyone's favorite mushrooms grow from?
The Black Forest of Germany?
I was going to say cow patties, but
Aha.
I guess we have different tastes. But I think that's where you're supposed to grow your homunculus too. Awful strange.
Yeah. Because nothing makes me intrigued to have a little soulless servant man than a pile of shit.
Well, yeah, I think that it's way more than a tiny soulless servant man. But I think there's also several different levels and variations of what we're discussing. Uh,
Right. Well,
and-
like I said, there's the transmigration of soul thing. So obviously, there's also that prospect that what you're doing doesn't put a soul in it, but perhaps a soul finds its way in.
yeah, yeah, and that's another thing that
We're
that we
about
can
to.
probably
I
touch
think we're
on.
about to hit that break. Hold on.
I got you.
We'll be back. We'll be back in a minute. Yep. Okay, we're muted. About thinking
Oh,
process.
yeah,
Everybody.
yeah. So one of the things that I've been trying to contend with, because I don't really do all of this, is taking writing, which is something that I do every day, all day, and then trying to bring it to uh, video, audio format in like real time.
Right.
I have to start doing more prep, even though certain things, I mean, like this, it's so hard to encapsulate everything in a clear and concise manner because there's just so much information to cover. It's overwhelming, you know?
Mm-hmm. What I do is that when I'm running through a thought that has 20 million alien terms in it, it's just like
Yeah.
I think of a quick thing to say as I'm passing by each term in my speaking. So if I bring, kind of like imagine you are a walking talking Wikipedia and you just have to say you can ask me more about this term, but it's a thing that supports this process that I'm explaining, right? And you just have to, and sometimes you go with that. It depends on what level of the conversation, because this is a highly advanced alchemy conversation that we're having in the first place, right? So it's not for the uninitiated to say on air, and we are on air. Excellent. It is the top of the hour. Hey guys, how's it going? It's been me and Paul Timothy Hughes, a private alchemist, working on a process, and he wants to share with guys like me as he's starting to get the word out about some of his discoveries to help other people in their processes, and how he is working on the formulations to perhaps successfully create a homunculus without doing some horrible crap that the ancient manuscripts of the alchemical sciences say you have to do. So that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about over here. And so, Paul, Take it away.
All right. So, where did we leave off? So I've basically been trying to outline some of the things that I don't think have really been discussed, to my knowledge, or anywhere I can find it. Problems that you could maybe solve ahead of time. Logically, some of the process seems to be astral as opposed to chemical, physical magic. You know what I mean? So there's the methodology of figuring out if you even have anything growing to begin with is it's not really clear, because it says that you'll see movement, but there will be a barely to imperceptible image of a human being inside of your hermetically sealed jar, right?
Right.
So what I take that as is there is an astral form that you can detect if you have the ability to see something like the human aura. But to me, I don't think that it's something that is just visible or barely perceptible to the average person's untrained eye. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So that's one of the loopholes or problems I've foreseen in the future. And we have ways around it. You can train yourself to astral travel. You can train yourself to see auras. These are all very well documented natural human abilities. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep.
Another thing.
That's on my laundry list of talents that I really want to unlock before I waste the opportunity to use them.
I'll say that I have been doing the whole astral travel thing, or at least trying to practice it as much as I possibly can.
Actually, hold on. Wait a second. Wait a second, Paul. I'm looking here.
Okay.
Did it not connect? I'm just noticing it said 2 of 3 in call. I called it. Hold on. Shoot. The studio didn't connect.
That's fine.
Share a link for others to. No. Let's see. Let me see if I can just add him hard again. Can I do that? Shoot. What's going on? TFR Studio.
Right. I need to panic. I'm not going anywhere.
This thing, right? Yeah. Right. That might be wrong. Or is it connect? Are we connected now? No, it's. You know what? Here, I'm just going to restart the call. I'm sorry, man. Hold on. I'm going to have to edit this now. It's going to need editing. Shoot. All right. Quit. Thank you. Getting there. All right. All right, here we are. Hello, hello, hello. I'm back. I am back. I'm surprised. Okay, I can't hear anything, so it didn't go to the automation. That's fine. Let me add participant. Where's my man? There he is. Okay, hold on. I'm getting Paul back on right now. I had to reset Skype altogether. All right. Hang on. There we go. Hey, dude.
I'm here. What's
Okay,
up, brother?
cool. So yeah, I had to reset Skype altogether. So all right, so next break, I don't want to drop the call again or mute it.
Not a big deal. Hey,
Okay.
why is my video on?
I don't know why your video's on. You can turn it off if you like. It's not serving the recording in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. How do you turn it off?
I don't know. It depends on how your phone and your app are operating. There you go. Now it's off.
I got it.
There you go. Okay. All right, keep going. We're live on the air.
All right.
Or actually, start over because I don't know if any of that stuff we started with got through. So I'm sorry if you don't mind repeating yourself. I mean, it's on the record, but the live audience didn't get it.
I don't. Where did I just start a second ago?
Well, I just told you to kind of take it away. I didn't even cite what we were speaking about before the break. So basically, wherever we left off at the break.
Which I can't remember at this point.
Just expound on the next thing you wanted to say.
Yeah,
whatever you got the next itch for, say it.
I got you, brother. So we're going through and we're trying to troubleshoot the working, and there's a whole bunch of information that we really need to straighten out before we can get down to business in any kind of functional, scientific, alchemical manner. One of the problems that we have are spagyric ingredients, I guess. There's maybe 5 or 6 different recipes that you could use as a basis, but many of them have ingredients that are either not clear or they're a rough description, and there's not a whole lot to go on. However, I think that if you go through enough like spagyric encyclopedias, you can figure out the areas where these folks would have been working, and you can figure out what the local flora would have been in that area. And then you can go through lists of spagyric ingredients that would correspond to something like, I know there's obviously not going to be anything that says creation of life from unlife, but anything that has corresponding properties, anything that has to do with Saturn or Venus, that's where you want to look. So that's something that I'll be working on later on. But right now, I'm really focused on magnetics and cymatics, which is, essentially two halves of the same coin. And the reason why I'm really focused on this is there's a few different reasons. One, if anybody has read Michael Mayer's Atlantifugians, he's showing you the correspondence between music and alchemy, right? And then if you go back to somebody like Kircher, Athenaeus Kircher, Kircher had, I believe it's called the Nova Phonergia, which was essentially a manuscript on the physics of sound. And it was pretty detailed, and I consider it, for what we're told intellectualism was back then, what technology was back then, what general understandings of physics and things were. It seems like pretty high-minded stuff. Now, I don't know about you, but modern academia will tell you that Francis Bacon is a dyed-in-the-wool intellectual that you can really you can count on historical evidence, historical doctrine. He's associated with the scientific method. He's someone who is believable through modern institutions. But even Bacon was himself deeply, deeply involved in alchemy. So these aren't people that don't have an understanding of how the hard physics and science of everything work. These guys are holistic. They alchemy and hermetics is the root of all science, mathematics, arts, and language, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So, in order to be able to perform this really high level metaphysical shit, you really need to have a fundamental understanding of the mechanics across the realm, whether it's fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, chemistry, alchemistry, uh, all of this, it's all interrelated.
Yeah.
And I mean, life
It's
is life, and it's something that has to contain all of the functions of the realm within itself. So
yeah.
if
When the monotheist talks about God, you know, they're often coming from the atonist definition of God, right? From Atonism, the religion incited by Akhenaten. But what you're really talking about is just understanding of the all in Hermetics, and the all is not one thing. It is not the aton, right? It
yeah,
is
it's
the all is literally all, right?
yeah,
And so, in order for you to play God because you were made in his image, you have to play by the same rules that God plays by, right? And to
sure,
know that, you have to know everything. You have to know what is the dynamics of that side of the field and that side of the field. Is the
correct.
ball of legal size and dimension and yada yada yada. You know, all the elements have to be
Yeah,
proper. You know, this is where
yeah.
Saturn comes into play, right? Because
See,
of time and
see
space.
the four astrological functionaries here essentially mimic the process of the philosopher's stone, just in an astral manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I forgot where I was going with this. So, oh, that's where I was going. So what I'd like people to really consider is we understand. I think most of us understand now that stars are not burning balls of gas. The closest thing that we can create to a star in a lab or to understand it in a model would be sonoluminescence, a star in a jar. And what is sonoluminescence? Is it's just a bubble of air that's suspended in a liquid, water, and it's bombarded with sound waves. And when those sound waves hit, they create a electromagnetic toroid field, and there's a plasma emission. There's a, it creates what looks just like a star. When you see a real star through a telescope, that's what it looks like. It looks like sound waves around a bubble. So
Mm-hmm.
if we are led to believe through our own understanding of the cosmology outside of the heliocentric nonsense, um, then we essentially understand that there's waters above and waters below. So if the waters above are where the stars and wandering stars are situated, um, and those wandering stars and stars appear to be sonoluminescence, that tells us that there is a sound, there is a consistent sound that is creating those patterns, those manifestations, whatever you want to call them. And you can clock it. The sky clock has never changed in ever. It's been precisely the same. You do set your watch by it.
Yeah.
And um, to understand sound and how it creates our reality through fractals and mathematics and electromagnetism and electrical forces. That's the whole kit and caboodle, essentially. That's pretty much the key to understanding everything you can understand, as far as I'm concerned. But there's more to it than that. There is still the hard biological alchemical aspects, which, I mean, it's understood by, I think, anyone who takes a long look at this material that there's a lot of alchemical allegory that you have to sift through, but it does seem to be historically accurate as far as I'm concerned. You have the whole concept of Jesus possibly being some sort of a god form homunculus, and I think that might actually be the only viable methodology there is. I think that's why it's such a well-documented alchemical allegory, or possible partially accurate historical reference.
So
Now,
do you think that possibly, so what entity do you think went into Jesus? Like, are we talking about one Jesus? Were there Gesi? Were there maybe perhaps a couple of homunculuses with different incarnations, made different choices at the same, were out there at the same time as such?
this is a really good question. So problems would arise, from my understanding, with the Paracelsian homunculi. They essentially would turn feral, or some kind of a quote unquote demonic. I personally don't like to use the term demonic. I think that the best metaphysical explanation for what the 2/3 of the Abrahamic folks call demons or fallen angels would be the jinn. The Celts would call it the fae. The Norsemen would ascribe it to giants and wolves, and you know what I mean. They're
There seems to be an etymological and even mythological correlation between these things, but also I think that perhaps the more mystical concept of a shaitan also it applies.
Yeah. So these were things that were essentially banished from the realm a long time ago. You can still interact with them through Goetia. You can interact with them through sleep paralysis, through astral travel, through certain things like angel trumpets, hallucinogens, entheogens. There's certain ways that you can interact with them, but they generally are not able to cross over to this plane in any physical, tangible form. So I believe that the empty husks that were growing and animating whatever was in them was more than likely one of these jinn, or whatever you'd like to refer to them as.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because the literature clearly states they would turn demonic. I don't think they turned demonic. I think they were demonic from the get-go, and they were just waiting until they were large enough stature to be able to do some damage, because logically, what would you do in their situation, right?
Right. Yeah. Also, there's all sorts of funky rules to not demons but daemons, right?
Sure.
There's a process. I was bringing this up somewhere before, and it's just like sometimes there's the daemons you have that are manifest. They're kind of like egregores, and they're like Mr. Meeseeks in Rick and Morty, right? And it's like it will that daemon will become your demon because you summoned him to work on something for yourself, and you stopped doing the work, and you denied him his sense of purpose, and now he's being sought out for termination, and so it's a hostile, disquieted spirit because
Yeah.
you are its maker, and you are neglecting
Yes.
your creation, and it's got a purpose to serve you, right? It doesn't have the emotion like we have. What makes us different, like in our relationship to the creator versus what's going on with these spirits, is that like we have a certain like there's an emotional side to it as well. It's a very different thing because we're souls. We have this way. We have the free will element and all that stuff, and stuff hurts a lot more, if you will. There's a certain amount of feeling, but then
Yeah.
but these spirits, this is just like it's just a hardwired thing that they don't like because of their association with the laws of nature.
Yeah. I think that it says pretty clearly in the Quran that they're tricksters by nature. It outlines that pretty heavily, I believe, in their version of Genesis. And
Yeah. And a lot of these tricksters, they have to trick you because you're foolish, and they have to uphold natural law, right?
of course.
That's one kind of trickster. There's another kind of trickster that gets into the distortions that have come in with the dark side of the mythos, which is not in accord with the animist traditions, but is meant to usurp them and take us on this more transhumanist journey, which is going to involve trying to make digital homunculus.
Yeah, absolutely. They're doing it as we speak. I guess you could say they've already done it.
They may have, yeah.
So back to the God form, Jesus, homunculus, Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe what they were doing was, the precursors to, well, I guess before the Knights Templar, whatever was before the Knights Templar, there were magi, magus, practitioners who were going through the astral, and I think that they understood. They might have had a different way to mathematically equate frequency, but I think that they had a way to understand the cymatics of the cosmos. And I think that they were also very experienced in astral travel and astral work. And I think that they went into the Devacanic realm, the higher astral realms, and they found an entity that was agreeable enough, or maybe it was something that they had already contacted, and they essentially set up a working. It probably took some time. I think that it was more complex than even the video makes it. And they brought an astral intelligence, a celestial intelligence, into a homunculus, into a human form without any copulation. And the reason I'm saying that I think people are misreading a lot of these woodcuts and a lot of the art is because it's very clear that what the artwork and the depictions at Coral Castle and even in Philadelphia, it's not rays of the sun we're talking about. It's not necessarily fire or the alchemist's fire. You can put fires out with sound. You can boil water with sound. A lot of people don't know that. Sound waves.
I think I've seen a demonstration of that. Yeah.
Sound waves can be pushed faster than the speed of light, and all light is in and of itself is 3D representations of cymatics. That's all it is. So
light. That's what light is.
Yeah, light is what you're seeing
That makes sense, because the only time I can ever think of it is something that I can't fully explain is, oh yeah, it's a perturbation of the ether, because I watch Ken Wheeler.
Can you think of anything that makes light that doesn't have a sound attached to it?
Okay, there we go. Now we're back. My God.
No hate. No
No,
hype.
we're not back.
No fear.
It says on air. You guys can probably hear me and the break, can't you?
TFR.
You there, brother?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. The station just hasn't decided when it wants to tell me the truth yet. That's all. Okay.
It's all right.
I think we're good. I think we're back.
All right. So we were talking about sound, cymatics, and what have you.
Yes. We were talking about the sound and the cymatic process that is involved. Were we still on the luminaries, or were we getting back into the homunculus side of where these sounds kick in?
We're gonna get there in a second.
All right,
there's
cool.
a couple
And this is
things
the
that
last.
I
This is the
want-
last segment. Just to let you know. So we got 30 minutes to nail it.
Yeah, I got you. So I was telling you that light is sound, right? Light is 3D cymatics. So there was a reporter essentially who was doing a piece on an underground hydroponics farm, and there were no visible lights. There was no electric source of lights, but there was still light in the cavern, in the cavitation, if you will. And when he asked the guide, whoever he was with, how is there light down here? The guide replied, "It's the sound." Royal Raymond Rife, 1931, essentially cured all disease with sound, and it's all it. How do I explain this? The toroid field that your body emits is because of the vibration of your body. It's your electromagnetic field, your electric field, whatever you'd like to call it. But what that really is vibration, right? So if you can learn what the mathematics and the cymatics are of those fields and the sources of the electromagnetic conjunctions with the luminaries, you can essentially understand how to kickstart life in an inanimate object, inanimate object, but there's prerequisites. That there has to be some kind of form that functions. A lot of people don't understand that in magic, you can't just manifest things that don't make sense. Everything has to be within the limitations of consensus reality, and that's not out of the question. That's not out of the realm of what we're talking about.
Right. And what makes that interesting, right, is that the consensus reality part, it's a question of, does that have to be a localized bubble? Does this have to be something that's believable to somebody who will possibly never have it with any of at least his five senses, because he's on the other side of the world, and there will never be a camera pointed at it that he will ever see. Does the unified field basically say, nope, there's one guy, it's just not believable enough yet, right? Because this is an understood mechanic, the Mage gaming system in that's made by White Wolf Publishing. They use this mechanic as the offset of the magician. I'm playing the game and I tell the storyteller I want to manifest a giant super eagle to come down, swipe down, and kill the guy. And he said okay, how are you going to rationalize the audience that happens to be in this park that's going to see this super eagle. If they don't believe that super eagle is going to happen, that spell is going to backfire. It's going to be bad news bears for you and your friends, right? And that's how that game works, right? So like how's the influence operate? Because the public sphere, I mean, like imagine all the movies, everything that's up on a billboard all the time. There's a lot of psychic charge to manifest a lot of things that seem like science fiction or complete horror shows, you know?
To the best of my understanding, there is an aspect of the working that has to do with the imagination. It has to do with visualization. And it, of course, that falls under the blanket term of astral magic. And there's ways that you can interact with those things through there. There's also a lot of mention of mirrors. Now, I think that has to do with the lack of maternal, the mother produces the prima materia, the father produces the pattern. So essentially, you're not taking anything from the female, you're giving 110%. So you have to focus on the pattern that you're creating, because normally the female, through her own consciousness, is changing, shaping the fetus as it's gestating. So where your conscious thought, your will, is shaping the literal form of the homunculus, the literature also states that you can trust these processes, that they are 100% natural, and that you can essentially set your watch by them. That there's no belief involved in the physical manifestation of whatever the form is, but you yourself have to have an image of the form in your mind before the process starts, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
just like if anyone is here who's listening has ever done sigil work, right?
Yep.
Before you do the sigil, you write out your statement of intent. You create a artistic representation after you knock out your repeating letters, blah 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 blah, and then you drop seed on it, if you will. And it's not really too far off from what we're doing here, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I make my own bind runes, and I started to realize I was doing it right when something hit me in my mind, in my approach, in my whole approach, as I found a more natural sense of this is the emotionally correct form for what I'm looking at, right? And it's pulling it together, and it looks right. It invokes the same sense of deep subconscious meaning that I get when I look at other sigils that I have seen, that I can tell it's there. It's just self-evident, right? And
Yeah.
it felt so good when I came up with my own for the first time, right? And it gets you familiar with what that process is, when you know the difference between where the energy is still kind of, unspoken, unmanifest, and then the form comes together and you're able to let that energy go. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd like to highlight that most runes, sigils, seals, whatever you like to call them, they're all essentially circuits. Pretty much, they're all paths for energy to follow, and then they're constrained within a circle normally, or a triangle, whatever you're using, and it's technology, just like the technology that we're talking on right now. Uh, Microchips are essentially reverse engineered talismans uh, in a crystalline form, and I mean that same crystalline technology is the same crystalline structure that's in the limestone in the pyramids. It's literally the same thing. Uh, you know, silicate is what limestone is predominantly made of. And that's why I say, oh, I should also mention this. Michael Tellinger, the fellow from South Africa, Ubuntu movement guy, talks
Right.
about megalithic structures, Adam's calendar.
Yep.
There's a correlation between his work and Leedskalnin. And also, if you know about Michael Tellinger talks about Enki and creation of mankind by, the quote unquote Anunnaki and human modification, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tellinger has these little I guess they're mineral, they're conical objects shaped like a gambok. Is that what we figured out that term was? The thing that you can spin and it spins backwards. They're essentially like a wonky cigar shape, right? And
oh yeah, we were
he
talking
says
about
that-
this. Yeah, I forgot the name, but I know what you're. I've seen the demonstration. Right.
Yeah. So apparently this thing puts off crazy electromagnetic fields, right? And Tellinger is also big into cymatics now. But what I find really interesting, and I just randomly stumbled into this entirely quote unquote by accident. Tellinger's little object, his little artifact, is roughly the same description as what they said Leedskalnin was using to direct this energetic field that was created, obviously, by the flywheel mechanism. And they said that he did it all with 2 ice cream cone shaped objects in his hands. So it seems an awful lot like whatever Tellinger has fits the description roughly, or to my knowledge, it fits the description of what Leedskalnin was using to direct that energy. It sounds an awful lot like a magic wand, if you will, and it's something that someone physically has in their possession. We could probably eventually, on a long enough timeline, find out what the mineral composition of that object is, and theoretically, you could make another one. And if you could make another one,
But was it just an object that or was it a machine? Did it have moving parts? Did it have an integrated circuit? Were there wires that were inside of it? Right? Was it just a polished stone?
Well, I think that Tellinger has had some X-rays done on it. I don't know if he's done GCMS tests or whatever mineral tests that they would do on it, but I'm not able to find any of that information online. I've attempted to email and text Tellinger, but that I'm sure that's never getting through to that guy. Or if it does, it'll be 10 years from now. So until something breaks or there's a better understanding of that, I'm kind of at a standstill on certain things, but it doesn't mean that I'm not making progress. You know what I mean? We theoretically, Uyun al-Haqa'iq is being translated by Nineveh Shadrach when he gets around to it, because he's doing it out of the kindness of his heart, which is great.
What is that? I don't think I've heard of that.
Okay, so that is the only publicly available copy of Liber Vacsae in its full, essentially unadulterated form. So,
but it's not called Liber Vacsae in that form. What where's that name come from?
I mean, we have there's been 3 to 5 different names attached to it. It's just the name of the text. I can't remember exactly what it translates to, but it's the Book of the Cow. There's a translator who's gone through it.
Because the word haka, I think, means dance in Old Norse. I think it means dance. Kind of like a ceremonial dance.
Yeah,
right. That's why I asked, because it sounded a little Old Norsey when I heard haka.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Indo-Aryan, we do have a lot of crossover with the Saracen folks, whether people like to admit it or not.
Uh-huh.
The Indo-Germany area, the Hyperborean folks. At one point, I think they all cohabitated together for quite some time, and they share an awful lot of similarities between, the Norse pantheon and Hinduism. But that's
Well,
besides.
yeah, all the pantheon's earliest forms are extraordinarily variant to each other, right? I mean, like we could talk about we could talk about African paganism, and I could talk about how Anansi might be Odin, how Shango might be Thor. These are very cool things to discuss. I mean, Shango is definitely Thor, right? That's Anansi. I think is Odin, and everybody knows Anansi from American Gods at this point.
Well, I know Anansi from Anansi Boys, the novel, but
Right, which I think is kind of tertiary to
yeah.
Anansi in American Gods.
Well, the novel was essentially like a soft sequel to American Gods, the novel.
Right,
Both
right.
of them obviously predate the show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Real quick, Leedskallen has a carving of Thurzaz, Thor's rune, somewhere in Coral Castle. I don't have the exact location written down, but there is a rune carved into one of the walls of Coral Castle, to my knowledge, and it's Thor's rune. So obviously they're talking about electricity and magnetism, right?
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean,
The
because like Thor is also Tor, right? Which is like power, torsion, right?
or the toroid field.
Well,
Torus
the
field.
Tor, yeah. There's torsion energy in the toroid field, and in the Bach
Yeah.
saga, the Tor is kind of like this. It's a gift. It's like a power or something that you're given by your friend or something like I can't 100% remember, but the part of that root is in the Bach saga as well.
Sure. One quick thing that I wanted to touch on that I didn't really get to mention, to really be able to decode all of this and understand this and know where you have to look, you have to have at least a beginner's understanding of the Kabbalistic tree of life. That's been an incredibly helpful reference to me. Some people probably have a copy of Crowley's 777 Revised. If you don't, you should. And there's other Kabbalistic references you can use. I've been going as far back as I can with the Sefer Yetzirah and the Zohar and old texts to try to get as good of a foundational understanding in English, because I don't speak Hebrew, because that's whether you like the Abrahamic folks or not, a lot of their esoteric technology functions as needed. It's very sound in its mechanics, and the Kabbalah makes sense. It works, and to be able to do a lot of the work that any of us do in this realm, you need to have an understanding of the correspondence of things in the realm between numerology, which is the correspondence between numbers and objects or occurrences in life, or gematria, which is the same thing applied to semantics, the spoken word or the written word, because everything is encoded. Everything that you're going to encounter in all of this is all allegory. It's encoded. Some of it is very, very, very obscure, essentially unsolvable puzzles, and you have to be able to find ways around it. These are guys who thought it was funny to write literature that lasted essentially forever in our minds, and a lot of it was leading people to boil buckets of urine trying to essentially distill gold. While I think that in a way you could probably eat the correct diet to urinate, because urine is just water, urea, and salt with some minerals from your body in it, right? So if your urine was close enough to the deep waters of the Black Sea, or just deep sea vent waters, you could technically distill it from there. But they've done an awful lot of what I think is pretty funny stuff to throw people off from the actual great work. And to me, that's pretty amusing.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people really catch on to it, but they did have a sense of humor.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Somebody was trolling the profane. It's just like, oh, you don't want to go to, you don't want to get past neophyte, and you think you can play hardball. Well, here, go drink some piss for like 6 months and see what happens.
This is precisely what I'm saying. These guys had a sense of humor. They understood that what they were doing was very high level thinking, very high level metaphysics, and it's not really something that I don't see being beneficial for everyone to be involved in or to understand. And the thing is that a lot of people don't understand with these secret societies and whatnot is this all takes a lot of time to learn, and then to digest, to correlate, and then to be able to transmit to others or use functionally, right?
Right.
So we understand that there's nothing new under the sun. People don't ever really change. And just like now, most people don't have the time, patience, wherewithal, or will, drive, whatever you want to call it, to actually sit down by themselves, meditate, breathe, read, study, and then put into practice, and then possibly fail, and then have to start all over again. So why would somebody who has spent a majority of their lives in solitude, learning the secrets of the realm, want to piss their time away on people who aren't going to pay attention, aren't going to value what they're being taught, or aren't going to use it for anything that's going to benefit the rest of society? So people can be mad at the fraternal organizations all they want, and there are some of them that, yes, even I have concerns with, and I know plenty of people in the Masons and all kinds, Shriners, all kinds of organizations, and some of it, yes, there's ideologies, and there's folks who are.
I do want to question. I do have a question for you about because we talked about the Kabbalistic tree of life there.
Sure.
How have you found working the numerology with it? Do you feel like it's got good divine accord with say like Tesla's principles of the 369? Does that work out? Because I have concerns about that system.
I can't. I wasn't going to bring this up because I thought it would be super cliche.
Okay.
But literally, one of the things that's in my notes in several places is this is all directly related to Tesla's statement on 3, 6, and 9. If you understand 3, 6, and 9, all of that math that I was going through earlier, if I would have taken that to its conclusion, it would, and there would have been a tremendous amount of explaining involved, and I would have needed visual representations for certain things. But just look into the golden ratio, pi, prime numbers, prime quadruplets, right angles, and the way the pyramids were built. There's like I said, if you go on YouTube and search, I think it's called Ancient Knowledge, and then it's parts 1 through 6. There's a channel, I think at least it's available now, Killuminati Exposed or something to that effect. And then you have to chase down 2 or 3 of the links that aren't present on his profile. And essentially all you need to do is just type in whatever number comes after the part and it'll pop right up.
Gotcha.
And that's going
So
to
you
give
got
you
about 2 minutes. You got about two
Yeah.
minutes to give us your finale.
That's essentially what you're looking at right there. That mathematics is going to give you the secrets of life, death, creation, destruction, how energy manifests, how matter manifests in the realm. If you understand that, you understand everything. Tesla was 100% correct. I don't know if Tesla got his own work, was getting his ideas from the Akashic records, whatever you want to call it. He could have been the speakerhead for a group of people. He could have been rediscovering old secrets. All I know is the man was spot on in everything that he said, and the numbers can't lie. It's everywhere across geometry, biology, physics, chemistry. It's everywhere you look. It's all throughout the human body, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about essentially the secret of life. This is the only alchemical secret above the physical, chemical philosopher's stone. The red and the white, and it would
30
disprove
seconds.
it would disprove the veracity of our historic records, and essentially ruin the good name of modern academia if somebody could take ancient occult technology that I believe has been used for thousands of years successfully and prove that it works without the assistance of modern laboratory.
Excellent. Guys, this has been Trigenesis with Zeralath. You've been listening to me interview Paul Timothy Hughes. Thank you so much. Have a great night.